correct. So what I would do is write x squared minus 7x, leave some space, equals positive 2. So here's where it does get a little more complicated. So let's try this. Completing the square part. What is your b value? And what is so challenging about that?
It can't be halved.
It's odd, right? It's an odd number. So let's use fractions, not decimals here. What is the half of b? You said 7 over 2? Yeah, I'm going to say it's negative 7 over 2. That's exactly right. And we square that, you are correct. We get 49 over 4. And here we go. So I'm going to take that 49 over 4, and I'm going to add it to both sides. And so kind of for the first time, that right side gets a little more challenging. What is 2 plus 49 fourths? Say again?
14 and 4.
I don't want mixed numbers. I definitely don't want mixed numbers. I want improper.
53 over 2.
I think 57 fourths. 57. So here's how you do it. You'd say 2. 2 is really 8 fourths. I'm getting my common denominator here. And so 8 fourths plus 49 fourths, you leave the denominator the same and you add the numerators. So that's where you get that 57 fourths.
I was using the denominator as 2 for some reason.
I was multiplying it by 2 too.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I got that now.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, so then the left side. Guys, here is where the left side gets challenging. In all of our factorings that we did back in chapter 6, we never really looked, and I think rightfully so, we never really looked too much at, what if you've got a bunch of fractions in there? Didn't we normally try to clear the fractions out? We really can't do that here. However, there is a little trick that I think will help us. Do you remember that in all of these completing the square questions, there was a pattern with the factoring compared to the b? So, since we did complete the square, wouldn't it be fair to say that the factoring is going to be a perfect square, right?
Yeah.
With an x. What would be the number that goes in there with the x? There's this. We talked about this yesterday. There's a little pattern that you see emerge.
Oh, 7 halves.
Close.
7 halves.
Close.
What? 7.
Close. Negative. It's negative 7 halves. So, when you complete the square, the number that's the part of the factoring is always the half of b that we previously used. If you did it correctly, it should always be that. In this case, it's true that negative 7 halves and negative 7 halves multiply to be 49 fourths and add to be negative 7. You can do it that way. Like you could do a little diamond thing, but it's much easier to remember the little trick with the half b. Makes it, I think, much easier. Okay, so the way this finishes would be this. Square root both sides. That gives us x minus 7 halves equals plus or minus the square root of 57 fourths. Come back over here. So x equals, I'm going to add 7 halves now, so it would be positive 7 halves plus or minus root 57 fourths. There would probably be just one more thing we'd have to do here to simplify our answer. What do you think that is? Yeah, the radical thing. Yeah, what about the radical?
2. So 2, it'd be 2 over radical.
Well,
You multiply by radical 4.
But what's the square root of 4?
2. So you 2 over radical 57.
Well, other way around.
You would have
57 over radical.
No.
You would have to do
57 over.
There you go. Sam, sorry, she kept on switching it around there. Yeah. So it'd be that right there. 7 over 2 plus or minus root 57 over 2. It could be written like this. 7 plus or minus root 57 all over 2 because you do have a common denominator. You don't have to write it like that. Either answer would be totally fine. What's that, Sam?
It's going to take a while to learn this.
I agree. I'm going to show you the one example. We're going to practice.
Alright.
Wait, isn't it like if you're multiplying, you have like a fraction, and you have to multiply by the bottom, like the denominator?
To rationalize,
Yeah, wouldn't you have to multiply 57 by 4?
well, the root 57 is in the numerator, right? So what I looked at, hey guys, quiet down please. I think Danny has a really fair question. I'm going to try to squeeze this in. Could you, stop, thanks. So Danny, let's just focus on this for a second. Root 57 over 4. It is a fraction, so it could be rewritten like this. And I think this is partially what you're getting at. Square root of 57 over square root of 4. So if you wanted to, at this point, you could say, hey, you can't have a radical in the denominator, so let's multiply the top and the bottom by root 4. Do you see how somebody could reasonably say that? And you could. However, you could really short circuit all of that by saying, hey, the square root of 4 is 2. There's no more radical in the denominator.
Okay, I got it now.
Yeah, so there's no more radical in the denominator, so there would be no need to do that. If you did do the, root 4 times top and bottom, you would still have quite a bit of simplifying yet to do, but you would eventually end up at that root 57 over 2. Yeah. Sam, go ahead.
So when we got to the step root of x minus 7 over 2. Yeah.
So right here?
Yes. Why is it a negative?
Why isn't it not plus 7 halves?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good question. A couple of levels of reasoning on that. The half of b was negative 7 halves.
That's right.
The other way to think about it is that's the number that works. Like if you were to, you could do this. I don't recommend it really, but you could take, like when it came down to the factoring, when it came down to factoring this, couldn't you look at this as a diamond method?
Oh, yeah.
And you could say that the AC is 49/4 and the B is negative 7. So which numbers multiply to be 49/4 and add to be negative 7? It'd take a long time to come up with this because we're not used to using fractions here, but it really would be negative 7 halves and negative 7 halves. The reason being that negative 7 halves times negative 7 halves is 49/4.
Oh, okay.
And negative 7 halves plus negative 7 halves is negative 14 halves, which is negative 7.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, if you wanted to diamond method it, be my guest, but it's way easier. Just remember the half B trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to do one more example. Any other follow-up questions before we... You know what? I'm going to change my mind. I don't want to do one more example right now. I want to do maybe 1 or 2 rounds of board work with this, okay? So let's head to the board. In order to complete the square on that, the a has to be 1. So if a is not 1, the way that we make it 1 is to divide everything through by a. Because, of course, anything divided by itself is 1. So when you look at our final example here, 4x squared minus 24x minus 3 equals 0, you can all see pretty plainly that the a is not 1. What is it? It's 4. So before we do anything else, before we do any CIAs or anything like that, we are going to divide everything through by 4. And this will allow us to then complete the square eventually. So it looks something like this. Makes it look a little simpler for the most part, with the exception of one number. It'll look like this. X squared minus 6x. That's good news, isn't it? Why is that such good news?
You can do the b half.
Because the b is even. It'll be very easy to find the half, right? Minus 3/4, that's a little unfortunate. You can deal with that though. Equals 0. So guys, that's really the only additional step here. I'm going to help you kind of navigate the fraction a little bit. But in order to complete the square, the a value must be 1. So in this case, we had to divide everything through by 4 to get it there. All right, good review of steps here. First step would be to get the c to the other side by adding 3/4 to both sides. Now let's see how good you guys can do this. What is b?
9.
No.
Negative 6.
Half of that is?
Negative 3.
Squared is, I know, yeah, I get it. So we're going to add 9 to both sides, right? So plus 9 plus 9. Good? All right, the left side will factor pretty easily. How will the left side factor?
X minus 3.
Yep, x minus 3 quantity squared. And then 3/4 plus 9 should be 39/4 when you get that common denominator and add. Okay, what comes next?
Square root.
square root, and square roots. I'll come up here. So I get x minus 3 equals plus or minus square root of 39/4. Now we've kind of struggled with this right side, so let's focus on this. Square root of 39/4, couldn't that be rewritten as plus or minus root 39 over root 4?
Yeah.
And what's the square root of 4? 2. That's a good thing, right? So we end up with x equals 3 plus or minus root 39 over 2. Question, Amelia.
Why wouldn't you move the 3 over first and then divide by 4?
We never divided by 4. You mean like do the simplification?
Yeah.
You could. I just decided to focus on that because we've struggled with that on our board races so far. Good question. Okay, so 2 things here. We're going to go back to the board. We'll probably have time to practice one of these after Colby's question, and we will re-practice these again on Monday. Go ahead, Colby.
So to get all the points on the test, what all work would we show? All of that?
Divide by 4, get the 3/4. You could probably like divide by 4 and just add the 3/4 in the same step, I suppose, right? I definitely want to see the plus 9 because that's the completing the square part. Factoring for sure. And really, I mean, I think you could easily jump from here to here in one shot. So there's a couple steps I probably showed that were not entirely necessary. All right, let's go to the board. This should be our last one unless you're super duper fast.